Eileen Griffiths from Belfast started writing through her involvement with drama groups, which might explain her penchant for monologues. Many of her pieces observe Riley on the vagaries of love with his soup song. I'm looking at that and I was thinking, I should have asked her during the break. With a soup song of magic realism sprinkled here and there, along with cunning references to quantum physics, a subject which continues to fascinate. Eileen is reading Afterwards.
This piece was inspired by a painting by a Scottish colourist, F.C.B. Cadell, who was renowned for painting the interiors of Edinburgh and Newtown. Thank you. Yeah, that's fine. Looking back, she couldn't quite pinpoint the time when the exchange of air between them had become unequal. The portrait of her hanging over the marble mantelpiece, painted shortly after they'd first moved in, showed her as statuesque and proud, with her arm resting proprietarily on that same mantel. She seemed to occupy her space with ease then, to stand her ground, though maybe there was a hint of strain around those eyes even then. It was a grand house, and over the years she felt that as he had grown in stature to fill it, she had diminished accordingly, as though he was sucking in her air, inhaling her exhaled breath, and channeling it somehow to nourish and sustain his own well-being. She sought and found the reflection of her slight figure in the milky depths of the mirror on the wall facing her, and feared that the process was now irrevocably complete. Sitting upright, still in her dark clothes, her pale starkness was emphasized against the sofa's bright green brocade. The tea tray in front of her was a reminder that others would be arriving soon to offer comfort. But she was frozen in place, immensely grateful for this interlude of quiet. She breathed in and exhaled, and was surprised that this time her breath hovered, remained hers. Although it had a fine Georgian window, this was always a room where the focus was inwards. He had liked to have the blinds down to deter the sunlight from his desk. And in any case, there was nothing to encourage the gaze outwards, as the view of the imposing houses opposite did little to relieve her spirit. This room was all about the internal, and an observer looking in would have judged it a picture of framed perfection. She was aware that she existed in a lavish, still life, which she had allowed to stultify and still her own life. It was filled with items collected by both of them over the years, but whereas he had still had the lust for accumulation, she had reached saturation point many years ago. At some point, it had ceased to be a pleasure for her, maybe when she realized that the objects now belonged here, while she no longer did. The room weighed heavily on her, everything in it competing for space, clamoring for attention. Her eyes were weary as they drifted over the pieces, trying to absorb their rich detail, their beauty only making them more deadly, flaunting their permanence in the face of an impermanent life. It came to her that she could now pare everything down to the bone, though she felt sad when she considered what lives are reduced to, when reviewed through the things left behind. The distilled essence of all their early hopes and dreams still lingered in these objects, and it seemed disloyal to now have solitary control. She wondered how much time would have to pass before they lost their potency and could be respectfully abandoned. She took a breath, and it felt pure, nourishing, fanning those embers still glowing within her. She heard a knock and took another deep, life-stirring breath. She prepared herself. They had arrived.